What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA
playoffs, Friday, May 21st.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, we have an NBA showdown between the Memphis Grizzlies and the Golden State Warriors. So let's take a look at the point guard position. I like Stephen Curry from the Golden State Warriors playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have the 13th worst defense overall and they're middle of the pack defending opposing point guards. Stephen Curry has averaged 47.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 35% usage rate. He scored 44 and 67 fantasy points in the last two games, playing 40 and 39 minutes. He's projected at 50.7 fantasy points here tonight. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 221 points scored in this game. And I like this pick because he scored 67 fantasy points in his last game versus the Grizzlies. So I like Stephen Curry here versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, if you want to save some salary at the point guard position, take a look at Jaron Morant from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Golden State Warriors, who have a middle of the pack defense overall, and they give up the 11th most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Jaron Morant has averaged 35.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 27% usage rate. But I like this pick because he scored 35 and 32 fantasy points in the last two games, playing 40 and 37 minutes. So he's playing monster minutes. He's projected at 37.2 fantasy points here tonight. And Jaron Morant has scored 32 and 30 fantasy points in his last two games versus the Warriors. But now he's playing more minutes, so I think he can hit 40 fantasy points here tonight. So I like Jaron Morant here versus the Golden State Warriors.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Now guys, just as a quick note, we just released a free DFS contest on Draft Dashboard for MLB and NBA for DraftKings and FanDuel. There's over $500 available in the prize pool, and this is a totally free contest you can enter as a Draft Dashboard member. So make sure to click the link in the description of this video, give Draft Dashboard a try, and you can start playing in our free DFS contest and compete to win some money. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Dillon Brooks from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Golden State Warriors, who have a middle of the pack defense overall, and they give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Dillon Brooks has averaged 27.1 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 30 minutes per game with a 26% usage rate. But I like this pick because he's been on fire towards the end of the season, and he scored 46 fantasy points last game, played 39 minutes with a 25% usage rate. So he's projected at 29.5 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 35 fantasy points or more, and he scored 29 and 29 fantasy points in the last two games versus the Warriors. But now he's playing more minutes, and it's a good matchup, so I like Dillon Brooks here versus the Golden State Warriors. Now, just for a little bit less salary, On FanDuel, he's only 500 less. I probably prefer this play over Dillon Brooks. I like Andrew Wiggins from the Golden State Warriors playing the Memphis Grizzlies, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall. They're middle-of-the-pack defending opposing shooting guards. Andrew Wiggins has averaged 32 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 33 minutes per game with a 23% usage rate. He scored 29 and 37 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 39 and 37 minutes. So he's playing more minutes, and he's projected at 34.2 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 38 fantasy points or more. So I like Andrew Wiggins, who scored 37 and 37 and 66 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Memphis Grizzlies. Okay, who do we have at the small forward position? You got the pick between 2 players here. You got Kyle Anderson and Kent Bazemore. Between the 2 of those guys, I like Kyle Anderson from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Golden State Warriors, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Kyle Anderson has averaged 29.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 27 minutes per game with a 19% usage rate. He scored 28 and 30 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 32 and 29 minutes. He's projected at 30.6 fantasy points here tonight. He scored 30 and 29 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Warriors. It's a good matchup, so I like Kyle Anderson here versus the Golden State Warriors. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? I like Draymond Green from the Golden State Warriors playing the Memphis Grizzlies. Draymond Green has averaged 33.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 13% usage rate. But he scored 37 and 44 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 41 and 37 minutes. He's projected at 37 fantasy points here tonight. I think he can score 40 fantasy points or more. And I like this pick because he scored 44, 25, 40, 33, and 35 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Grizzlies, and he hasn't scored lower than 37 fantasy points in his last 4 games. So I like Draymond Green here versus the Memphis Grizzlies.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
But if you need to save some salary here at the power forward position, take a look at Jaron Jackson Jr. from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Golden State Warriors, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 10th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Jaron Jackson Jr. has averaged 29.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 23 minutes per game with a 26% usage rate. But he scored 27 and 38 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 30 and 31 minutes. So he's playing more minutes. He's projected at 31.5 fantasy points here tonight, and I like this pick because he scored 38, 38, and 32 fantasy points in the last 3 games versus the Warriors. It's a good matchup, so I like Jaron Jackson Jr. here versus the Golden State Warriors. Okay, moving on to the center position. If you're looking for a stud at the center position, take a look at Jonas Valenjunus from the Memphis Grizzlies playing the Golden State Warriors, who have a middle-of-the-pack defense overall, and they give up the 9th most fantasy points to opposing centers. Jonas Valenjunus has averaged 37.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 28 minutes per game with a 23% usage rate. But I like this pick because he scored 61 and 52 fantasy points in his last 2 games, playing 37 and 35 minutes. So he's playing way more minutes. He's super productive. He's a point per minute monster. He's projected at 42.6 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 50 fantasy points or more. And I like this pick because he did score 52 and 44, 36, and 61 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Warriors. It's a good matchup, so I like Jonas Valenjunus here versus the Golden State Warriors. Now, if you're looking for that value play on the slate, take a look at Kevin Looney from the Golden State Warriors playing the Memphis Grizzlies. Kevon Looney, he's only averaging 14.9 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 19 minutes per game with a 9% usage rate. But take a look at his last 3 games. He scored 29, 23, and 20 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 19, 31, and 21 minutes. He's projected at 17.5 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 25 fantasy points or more in this one. And he did score 23 and 31 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Grizzlies. So I like Kevon Looney here versus the Memphis Grizzlies.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.